what we do. And so we have to reciprocate, and so we have to make sure that we respond in kind and be grateful to him. And so ungratefulness and unappreciativeness is a trait of Satan. And so people who are like that, they're following the footsteps of Satan. And so that's not the way to go and the way to succeed. It's going to end up in failure. And so most of the stuff that I'm saying is you have to remember now, this is for the hereafter. It's not for this world. We are not promising anybody, the richness of Solomon. We are not telling people, if you come around, you're going to do this and you're going to succeed in your business. We're not going to tell people that they are going to come in here and they live forever. That's not the case. Okay, and so this is something that stressing the hereafter. This entire forum is stressing the hereafter, and as I always say, it's a very big stumbling block for a lot of people because most people do not believe in the hereafter, and they are taken by this world. So we have to remember that. But anyway, above all, as I said, we have to be grateful to our Creator for giving us this opportunity. So we are here and we are willing, and God has left us this love in our heart for Him, and so we are able to do this and practice this worship of God alone, and advocating God alone, and mentioning God alone, and believing God alone. So these are some things that we have to take to heart. What I wanted to discuss with you today is we read in the Quran sometimes that God says that no one can carry the sin of another. And there are some places in the Quran, like this one, 1625, and God says, it says that because of this, they will carry a full load of their sin on the day of resurrection, as well as the sins of those whom they misled without knowledge. Absolutely, what a miserable load. So, this entire description that God has given us is that if we mislead somebody, if we infringe on somebody's right, if we take the freedom away from somebody to practice something without any force from the outside, okay, if we do that, then we are responsible for the sin which is committed by that person. Okay? This goes to the overall justice. And God says not even an atom weight, not even less than that, of injustice will be inflicted upon anyone. So, case example. Okay? So if somebody, for example, there are a lot of traffickers, human traffickers, and they're forcing, they kidnap kids, they take the runaways, they take all kinds of people, and they force them into prostitution. Okay, so whose fault is it? Is it the kid's fault? Obviously the kid has no power. Okay? So whatever sin that looks to other people that is being committed by that kid in the act of prostitution is actually forced upon that kid by somebody else. So that sin that looks to people, which is committed by that person, is actually going to be carried by the person who is forced upon that person. Because that person has no free will. That's been taken away from him. That's the most important thing in the sight of God. Okay? And I always say this. You can be a disbeliever, but do not mislead, because once you do that, that is a trait of Satan. Satan does that. Satan is not just misled, he's also a misleader. Although some people graduate to that level, they get a PhD in misleading. They have no problems, no compunction in telling people what to do and what not to do based on lack of knowledge. Okay? They have no basis for what they're saying, but they're saying it anyway. So this is what God is telling us in this case. So, as I said, if you have, for example, if you have a country which is forcing people to do certain things, okay, what is the case for that person? And that person does it out of ignorance. And doesn't God know that? He knows it. Okay. If that person does it out of ignorance or does out of, God says those people, remember he said that you can leave this and go and worship God alone. They said our leaders were tyrannical. Or this is my heart spacious, you can go someplace and worship me alone, of course. He said there's no blame on those who cannot do that. Now some people are stuck in there for one reason or another. God knows that. This is what we always miss about God, who God is. Okay? When we ask a question, we forget who God is. God has not forgotten about anybody in this universe and the multiverse. He knows the predicaments that they're in. He hasn't forgotten about them. He knows them. He knows them better than themselves. He knows fully what's going on inside them. He knows their problems. So, we have to understand this fact that we cannot do this. God says you are not their advocate. Right? It's completely up to them. They take it or do not take it. It won't make any difference. All, for example, the messenger has to do, God says that so many times in the Word. He said, you just clearly deliver this. Okay? And he gives the tools to the messenger. And the other critics and all those people don't have any tools. Okay, but they keep lambasting the messenger for doing this and that. So he tells them that he tells the messenger that look, you have no power over these guys. You cannot force them to do anything. All you have to do is you have to really deliver this message, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So, when the messenger doesn't have this, then somebody else comes in there and infringes upon somebody's right. Freedom of religion, let's put it that way. Okay? That somebody is forcing you to do something. That's the worst possible thing, the most abhorrent thing in the sight of God. Because now you're taking somebody's rights away by either threatening them or doing something else. So those people who do that, they are responsible. There's some of the sins which is committed by these people. As I said, for the case of prostitution or human trafficking. Because they have no option. Those kids have no option. Every once in a while they come in there and, they find out these religious circles that, some kids have been molested, and they couldn't go tell anybody because they were embarrassed. And it's basically festered in their mind for a lifetime. Okay, so whose sin is it? Is that the kid's sin? Or the sin of the person who actually forces upon that kid? And then they don't want to even admit it. They have done this. Well, day of judgment, that's what they have to do. This is exactly what this verse says. A full load of their own sins on their religion, as well as the sins of those whom they misled without knowledge. Okay. So I always say this, that somebody who actually says, God says in the Quran, in chapter 64, he says that there is no more abhorrence in the sight of God than the preacher who preaches what he does not practice. Okay? That person has no moral authority to say anything. If that person doesn't practice it himself, that preacher doesn't practice himself, what moral authority he has to tell other people what to do and what not to do? None. So these are the cases that God is telling us, but this is overall justice that God wants to carry throughout His creation that He's created for us. Now remember now, this universe is based upon equality. That means that it's a balance that God has created. Those balance are those equations that we see in our lifetime. We take algebra, and then we take physics, maybe we take physics, I don't know, we take chemistry, and then we try to balance an equation that we never pay attention to. We say it, okay? And then we balance this equation, and then we teach it to other people too. Okay, well, we never think about it while we're doing that. Okay, well, that's the law that God has created. If we don't have that, nothing will roll around, and this world would not be here. Okay? So God says in chapter 55, he says, do not disturb this balance. So this is a case of somebody infringing upon somebody's right to have absolute free will, which God has granted that person. Okay? So any country, any people, any group, any individual, who take that right away from the people that they have authority over, that individual, that group, that people, that country will never succeed. Okay? So we cannot ask questions why this is like this. There is a reason that's like that. And if we question God's authority, His wisdom, His love, we are the one who's responsible. And that question comes up very easily. What have these people done that they're like this? That question comes up all the time. And so somehow God forgot about those people. He doesn't know. Right? There's a reason. And God knows that reason. That is what being at peace with God is. That we are happy with the way He's doing things because we know who He is. How would these people do this, or who's going to provide for them? How are they going to make a living? Didn't God say that He's going to provide for them? Don't we believe in that? Or we just keep continuing going and insulting God and His wisdom and His generosity and everything? And His fairness? That somehow God is being unfair to a group of people? We can't do that. There's a reason, because it says, God says in here, okay? So you go to any country that does that forces its people, okay, to do something without knowledge. They have no knowledge, okay? They have no knowledge. And they force people to do something. Then they are those people are responsible for any sin that those guys are committing. Or some of the sins that they're committing. Some of them are probably is coming from themselves that they have to respond to. But God knows exactly which sin was the cause of that misleading statement that was made by these guys. And the force that they use upon that person to practice that. So whatever they would do, which is called sin, and those two others as those committed by that person, is actually goes to the person who has forced that person to do it. Okay? So this is how we have to look at things. Okay? We cannot just, call a young woman a whore if that person that we have no idea of what the history of that person is. Was she a victim of trafficking? Was she forced to do that? Those are the type of things that we have to look at, and God knows that. We have to know who God is. Okay. So many times, what about this group of life? What about that group of life? As though, as I said, God has forgotten. And God is some kind of petty God like the old Greek God. Okay? And then wants to inflict hardship upon people. And somehow he doesn't like a group of people, so they're going to suffer anyway. And so we are actually more merciful than God, and we know better. And we don't like some of the stuff that he says in the Quran, because it doesn't make any sense to us. But then again, as I said, we have to put our trust in him, in God. If we do that, then we understand things better. We won't be confused with your daily news. Why something happens here, why something happens there. There's a reason. God knows that. Because we are breaking God's commandments. So we cannot do that, as I said, and have success, but as I always say this, the warning about this whole thing is especially for the hereafter. As this verse says, on the day of resurrection. That's what the heavy thing is. That's what the heavy burden is. And that heavy burden is going to be for eternity. It's not just going to be some passing thing. It's going to be for eternity. And that's what God is warning us about this. Okay? And so if we go along with him, with the path that is put upon us, in front of us, okay, then we are going to be okay. We're going to have no problems. If we break his commandments, and as I said, not only that we will be violating, transgressing against his laws, we're also graduate to the misleader, some satanic trait. Then we are in real trouble. So I'm going to stop here and we'll do the rest of our Juma. Allah الكبير على كسر الراحل. بعد الله الكبير سبحان ربي العظيم الله الكبير الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم الله الكبير. Now remember now, when he started the Ramadan this year, I said here that God is telling us, he says that in 2185, he says the month of Ramadan is the month during which the Quran was revealed as guidance for the people and proofs of guidance. Okay? So when God is telling us something, he also sends embedded proof with it. So on the day of judgment, we will not just say that, well, we have to accept our faith, and there was no proof or anything, so we're just not strong enough to do this, so we couldn't do it. All of those excuses are going to be gone. Okay? So here, what I want to share with you today is, again, goes back to 19, which is the generator of the Quran. Okay, so I'm gonna say a few things here. It says the 1975 is 55. Okay, and the prime number 5519 is the index of 6346, which is the total number of verses, including the 112 unnumbered opening statements. So if you have 6,234 numbered verses, and then you add 112 to them, you're going to get 6346. So we immediately from this, from 19 and 55, we generated the total number of verses in the Quran. Can you believe this? So what are the misleaders' proof? What are the proof? Did they do this? Did they show you this? This is what you have to understand and ask yourself before gravitating towards those guys. Now, the index of prime number 5519 actually happens to be 729, and it is the 632nd prime additive composite, which is I'm editing this, which is 6248. Okay, so I wrote it down here so you can understand what prime additive composite is. If you add a prime number with index, you get a composite, and this happens to be 602nd such composite. Okay, so this is the index of this prime, index of this composite. You see, these were the old things that I, from another thing, so there are some typos in there, so we fix all the typos. Now let us look at the property of 6248 with the following table. So we see that the index of individual twin prime is 1658, the index of prime is 6248, and the prime for individual twin prime is 62143. Okay? Now let's look at this 1657, what it is. There's 1657 happens to be the index of 1955. Remember now, 19 twin prime companion was 55, so we either can calculate it as 5519 or 1955. And it is readily generated from 19 and the 19 semi-prime, which is 55. And then we'll have 1657 in base 19 is equal to 9127 in base 10. Again, generating 9 having 127 verses. So you see, 5519 not only generates the total number of verses, including the unnumbered bismillah, in the entire Quran, which is 6346, not 6348. It also generates 9127. It tells you that chapter 9 supports that. Now let's look at 632. We can show us properly the following table. So I put this table here, and the basis here is this 15991, which is a prime, a Gaussian prime, and a lonely Gaussian prime. 632 happens to be the lonely Gaussian, but the index of lonely Gaussian prime is 15991. index of Gaussian prime happens to be 941. Index of prime happens to be 1862. So we look at these individuals. I talked about this before. So I copied and pasted from another place in this file that I have here. 19 times 98, remember chapter 19 has 98 verses, 1862, is the number of word God from 1 month to 2888. 159991 is a prime and is also a Gaussian prime. Its index of the Gaussian prime is 941, as we showed in the top table. And in the prime domain is 1862. 941 composite is actually 1131, which is the index of prime number 9127. Again, chapter 9 has up to 27%. The digits of 1862, i.e. 1, 8, 6, and 2, are the index of prime number 2, 19, 13, and 3, and 19 times 13 times 3 times 2 is 1482, which is the frequency of Aleph plus Lam plus Mim plus Ra in chapter 13. The digits of 1482, i.e. 1, 4, 8, and 2, are the indices of prime number 2, 7, 19, and 3, and we have 19 times 7 times 3 times 2 is 798, which is the frequency of Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad in chapter 19. Okay. So you see how it comes back on itself to generate all of this, and we haven't done anything. We haven't counted anything. We didn't go to Quran Tashkent to count these things. We didn't accuse Rashad Khalifa of being wrong without knowledge. We did not mislead people without knowledge. Okay? This is what we have to remember now. Okay? So as I said in the first one, we have to be very careful. Do we have the knowledge to do this? Do we have the source to do this? Where's our source? Where's our source when we are saying that chapter 13 doesn't have 1482 Aleph plus Lam plus Mim plus Ra frequency in it? Where's our knowledge? Where's our source? Before having moral authority to other people, that's not the case. Okay. This one tells you all of these things, and the reason it tells you all these things is because these are the force of mathematics, these are the force of numbers. And as I said, you did not change them. That's what God calls the motherboard. He calls it the original tablet. He calls it the protected tablet. Okay. That's what the tablet is. The tablet is mathematics. This is how God designed the Quran. That's why he said nothing can enter it. Okay? No falsehood can enter the Quran. So it's already there. We don't need anything else. So many ways we have shown this. So many ways we have proven this. This beginning. And it's all generated from this 19. And how it's generated. As I said, it's easy for us to see these things, these numbers. But the mathematics beyond this what I'm explaining to you, it's so formidable that we have no clue how to solve or resolve the situation. No one knows. That's what God says, if all the humans and jinns back together to produce a Quran like this in chapter 7, they will not be able to, no matter how much assistance they give one another. Okay? So I'm going to again, we're thankful to God for giving us this is a huge blessing. And so let's stop here and we'll do the rest of the program here. سبحان ربي العظيم الله كبير الله كبير صفات نفسي الأملاك الله كبير الله صفات نفسي الأملاك الله أشهد أن لا الله الله كبير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم الله كبير سبحان الله كبير الله كبير سبحان الله كبير سبحان بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم الله سبحان الله كبير الله كبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله كبير الله سبحان ربي الأعلى الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك ولم يكن له الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله everybody, السلام عليكم.
Goodbye.